My name is Rosalie Whitfield, and I was 30 years old the day I stood in a ballroom full of applause, wearing a dress I'd bought with my own money, holding a plaque with my name engraved in gold, and staring at two empty chairs in the second row that had little printed cards that read "Reserved, Whitfield family." Nobody tells you what silence sounds like when you're surrounded by noise. It sounds like the answer to a question you've been afraid to ask your whole life. Do they actually care? I'd been with Alderman and Polk, one of the top civil engineering firms in Charlotte, for 7 years. I started as a junior analyst, fresh out of NC State, pulling 14-hour days on highway expansion projects nobody wanted, double-checking drainage calculations that made my eyes cross, staying late to proof reports while the senior engineers went home to their families. I was the one who picked up the phone at 6 a.m. when the Virginia DOT needed revisions by noon. I was the one who drove 2 hours to a bridge site in the rain because the project lead's kid had a soccer game. 7 years of being the person who never said no. When I got the email from the managing partner telling me I'd been selected for the firm's Leadership Excellence Award, along with a promotion to associate director, I read it 3 times. Then I forwarded it to the family group chat. The message was simple. I'm getting a big award and promotion at the firm's annual ceremony. October 14th, ballroom at the Westin downtown. I'd love you all to be there. I'll save seats. I imagined my mom replying with a string of heart emojis, my dad sending one of his classic 2-word texts, "Proud kiddo," my younger sister Gemma screenshotting it and posting it on her Instagram story with some over-the-top caption about her big sis. A day went by, nothing. 2 days. Nothing. On the third morning, my phone buzzed while I was brushing my teeth. A text from my mom. Can't come. Gemma's birthday trip to Miami. Already booked the Airbnb. Sorry, honey. That was it. No congratulations. No, we'll celebrate when we get back. Just Miami. Gemma was turning 26. She'd already had a birthday dinner 2 weeks earlier. I'd paid for it. I stared at the text with toothpaste foam dripping down my chin and felt something inside me go very still. Not angry, not sad. Still. Like the moment before a glass tips off a counter and you know it's going to shatter, but you can't move fast enough to catch it. I should tell you about the years before that text, because none of this makes sense without them. I paid for Gemma's first apartment deposit when she was 19 and I was 23, making $42,000 a year before taxes. She said she'd pay me back in 2 months. That was 7 years ago. I paid for my parents' water heater when it blew in January because my dad said they couldn't afford the plumber and the part. I found out later my mom had bought a new sectional sofa that same month. I covered Gemma's car insurance for 3 years because she kept letting it lapse and my mom begged me not to let her drive uninsured. I skipped a conference in Denver, the kind that could have fast-tracked my career by 2 years, because my dad needed someone to drive him to a specialist appointment in Raleigh. He was fine. It was a routine checkup. He just didn't want to go alone, and my mom was busy helping Gemma move into yet another apartment. I was the safety net, the backup plan, the emergency fund with a pulse. And I did it because I thought that's what the oldest daughter does. You carry the weight, you hold the ceiling up. You don't complain because complaining means you're selfish, and selfish is the worst thing a daughter can be in my family. So when I walked into that ballroom at the Westin on a cool Thursday evening in mid-October, wearing a navy blue dress and heels that clicked too loudly on the marble floor, I already knew those chairs would be empty. I'd known since the toothpaste text, but knowing doesn't stop you from looking. The room was warm with golden light, round tables draped in white linen, programs with the firm's logo embossed in silver. Colleagues arrived with their husbands, wives, parents, kids tugging at their sleeves. A woman from the accounting department had her elderly father in a wheelchair, and he was beaming like he'd won the award himself. A junior associate's toddler kept running between tables yelling, "Daddy did it!" and everyone laughed. I stood near the bar holding a glass of sparkling water and watched the second row. 2 chairs with my family's name on little folded cards. 2 chairs that stayed empty through the cocktail hour, through the opening remarks, through the first 3 awards. When they called my name, I walked to the stage on legs that felt borrowed from someone else. The managing partner shook my hand. The firm's CEO, a woman named Carolyn Rask, who rarely attended these events, stepped forward and handed me the plaque along with an envelope. She leaned in close enough that only I could hear. "You earned every bit of this," she said. "Come see me Monday morning. We have a lot to discuss." I opened the envelope backstage. Inside was a revised compensation package. My base salary jumped from $94,000 to $157,000. A signing bonus, equity participation in 2 major projects, a handwritten note at the bottom in blue ink. "Your work on the I-77 corridor redesign saved this firm $2.3 million in our reputation. Time to build the next chapter together. CR." I folded the papers carefully, slid them into my clutch, and walked back to my empty table. People congratulated me. I smiled and said the right things. Inside, I felt like I was watching myself from across the room. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment in old sweatpants eating cold pizza straight from the box. The plaque leaned against the wall by the door where I'd dropped it. My phone was face down on the kitchen counter. I didn't touch it until almost 1 in the morning. When I finally flipped it over, the screen lit up like a dashboard warning. 41's missed calls, 19 texts. The voicemail icon had a little red number that seemed almost aggressive. At the top, a text from my mother. Sent at 11:47 p.m. We need to talk. Call us. 2 years ago, that message would have had me speed dialing before I finished reading it. I would have assumed someone was hurt, something was wrong, the house was on fire. This time, I just looked at the words. We need to talk. About what? About Miami? About the empty chairs? About the 7 years of silent extraction they'd been running on my bank account and my soul? I set the phone down and went to bed. I didn't call back. That one decision, the decision to simply not pick up the phone, cracked everything open. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the calls started again. Mom, Dad, Gemma, rotating like a tag team. When one went to voicemail, the next called. By noon, the texts shifted tone. Why aren't you answering? This is serious. Stop acting like a child. Then softer. We love you. Let's not let this become a thing. I was at my desk reviewing structural load calculations when my dad's number flashed again. I almost let it ring out. But something in me, some leftover reflex, made me pick up. He skipped the greeting. Rosalie, listen. Your mom and Gemma planned that Miami trip months ago. It was already paid for. You can't hold that against us. I said nothing. Come on, he continued. You've always been the mature one. The strong one. That's what we love about you. You don't need us sitting in some chair clapping. You know we're proud. The strong one, the mature one. These used to feel like compliments. Now they sounded like job descriptions. You're the one who handles things, so we don't have to. Family doesn't keep score, he said, his voice hardening slightly when my silence stretched too long. You're making this into something it isn't. I pulled the phone away from my ear and hung up. No goodbye, no explanation. Just the quiet click of an ended call. 10 minutes later, my grandfather called. My grandfather, Leonard Whitfield, was 81 years old and sharper than anyone half his age. He lived alone in a small brick house in Concord that he'd owned since 1978. He never asked for money, never hinted, never guilted. If he needed something, he asked directly, and if you said you couldn't, he said all right then and figured it out himself. He was the only person in my family who treated my time and my money like they belonged to me. When I saw his name on the screen, I answered without thinking. Heard about your award, he said. His voice was gravelly but steady, the kind of voice that made you feel like the ground underneath you was solid. Congratulations, sweetheart. My throat tightened so fast I couldn't speak for a moment. Thank you, I finally managed. A pause. Then, I also heard your mother and sister were in Miami. Of course he'd heard. My mom would have called him the second she realized I wasn't responding, spinning the story into whatever version made her the victim. She called me crying, he confirmed. Said you were shutting them out. Said you'd changed. Said the promotion went to your head. I sank into my office chair and pressed my fingers against my eyes. What do you think? I asked. He made a sound, half sigh, half laugh. I think they're not upset because they missed your ceremony. They're upset because they realized you stopped chasing them. You've always come back, Rosalie. Every time they took something, you came back and offered more. This is the first time you didn't, and it's scaring them. I felt something unlock in my chest. He'd just named the thing I couldn't see clearly on my own. They don't miss you, he said quietly. They miss what you provide. There's a difference, and you need to start knowing that difference before it costs you everything. After I hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at the skyline through my office window. The sun was going down behind the Bank of America tower, turning the glass orange. My reflection stared back at me, faint and transparent, like a ghost of the person I used to be. The following week, the strategy changed. The angry messages from my family evaporated overnight and were replaced with warmth so sudden it felt rehearsed. My mom sent a photo of herself in a sundress on the beach with the caption, "Wish you were here, baby girl." My dad texted a thumbs up and "Love you, kiddo." Gemma posted a story tagging me with a photo of a cocktail and the words, "Can't wait to celebrate my big sis when we get home." Then Gemma sent a private message. "Sue, proud of you, Rose. We should do a nice dinner when I'm back. Your treat, obviously. Your treat, obviously." 4 words that told me everything I needed to know about how this was going to go. When they got back from Miami, the first call came on a Tuesday. Gemma. She didn't ease into it. "Roz, my credit card is maxed out. Miami was more expensive than I planned. Can you cover the minimum payment? It's only like $400. I'll pay you back when I get my next check." I'd heard this script so many times I could have recited it from memory. The phrasing never changed, only like, "I'll pay you back, just this once." "No," I said. Silence. "What do you mean no?" "I mean no, you'll figure it out." "Are you serious right now?" Her voice sharpened. You literally just got a massive raise. This is nothing to you. Nothing to me. Like the years I'd spent earning it were invisible. Like my salary was communal property and I was being stingy with what rightfully belonged to all of us. I'm not doing this anymore, I said. Good luck with the payment. I hung up. My hands were trembling, but beneath the trembling, something else, steadiness. The kind you feel when you do something hard that you know is right. 3 days later, my dad called with the same energy, different packaging, casual at first, asking about work, about the weather, about nothing. Then the pivot. Listen, your mom and I got a little behind on the electric bill and the car payment. It's been a tough month. Could you help us out? With your new position, it's probably pocket change. Pocket change. My new position. He said it like he'd studied a spreadsheet. How do you know what my new salary is? I asked. A beat of silence, just long enough. Your mother heard from someone. You know how it gets around. Heard from who? I don't know the details, Rosalie. Don't make this weird. We're family. But something about the way he said it didn't sit right. Salary information at my firm was locked down tight. HR didn't discuss compensation with anyone outside the employee. Nobody just heard numbers like that. I ended the call and sat in the dark of my living room, a cold feeling spreading through me. For years, I'd believed the worst my family could do was take advantage of my generosity. It was starting to occur to me that they might be willing to go further. That Friday evening, I was walking to my car in the parking garage when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw Denise Alvarez from payroll. She was a quiet woman, mid-40s, the type who ate lunch at her desk and left exactly at 5. She never lingered, but tonight she was lingering. Do you have a minute? She asked, glancing over her shoulder. Sure. Someone called the firm last week claiming to be your financial advisor. They asked for your compensation details, bonus structure, equity participation. Said they needed it for tax planning purposes. My stomach dropped. We declined, Denise said quickly. It's against policy. But the caller was persistent, called twice more. The second time, the caller ID showed a number registered to a Margaret Whitfield. My mother's full legal name. Denise watched my face carefully. I flagged it internally. I thought you should know. I leaned against my car and felt the cold metal through my blazer. My mother had called my employer pretending to be my financial advisor to extract my salary information. She hadn't just been nosy, she'd been strategic. She'd crafted a cover story, called multiple times, pushed past the first refusal. Thank you, I said to Denise. My voice was steady, but my insides were shaking. She nodded, gave me a look that said, be careful, and walked to her own car. I drove home with white knuckles on the steering wheel. The thing I couldn't stop thinking wasn't that my mother had done it. It was that she'd planned it. She'd sat down, come up with a story, picked up the phone, and deliberately tried to breach my professional boundaries to figure out exactly how much money she could try to get from me. This wasn't just entitlement. This was calculation. I barely slept that weekend. On Monday, I took my lunch break at the bank and did something I should have done years ago. I removed my parents from every financial account where they had any form of access. When I'd turned 22, I'd added my mom to my checking account because she said it would be easier in case of an emergency. I'd never questioned it. She'd been on the account for 8 years. The banker pulled up the transaction history and asked if I wanted to review it. Something in his tone made me say yes. What I saw made my vision blur. Small withdrawals I'd never noticed. $40 here, $70 there. $120 in August, $60 in September. Over the past 3 years, the total came to just over $4,200. Amount small enough to miss if you weren't looking. Amounts deliberate enough to tell me she'd been doing it on purpose. I removed her from the account, set up new passwords, enabled two-factor authentication, and sat in the bank parking lot for 20 minutes staring at the dashboard, breathing slowly. That evening, I called my grandfather. I found out Mom's been taking money from my checking account, I said. No preamble, no softening. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, how much? Over 4,000, in small amounts, over 3 years. Another pause. That doesn't surprise me as much as it should, he said finally. Your mother's always had a way of making sure she gets what she thinks she's owed. She also called my company pretending to be a financial advisor, tried to get my salary information. This time, the silence was sharper. That's not entitlement, he said slowly. That's fraud. I could hear him breathing on the other end, the measured breath of a man choosing his words carefully. There's a family dinner at your aunt's house this Sunday, he said. Your mother organized it. She's been telling everyone you're helping them buy a new house. My blood went cold. What? She's been calling relatives all week, telling them you got a huge promotion and you're ready to take care of the family. Your Aunt Karen thinks you're putting a down payment on a 4-bedroom in Mooresville. Your cousin thinks you're paying off your parents' car. None of that is true. I know it isn't, but they all believe it. He paused. Come to the dinner, hear what they're saying, and then decide what you want to do about it. He wasn't telling me what to do. He was giving me the chance to see the full picture with my own eyes. Sunday came with a sky so blue it felt like a lie. I drove to my Aunt Karen's house in Huntersville, a ranch-style home with a big backyard and a deck that smelled like charcoal and hickory. Cars lined the curb. I could hear laughter and music from the backyard before I even parked. When I walked through the gate, every head turned. The smiles were wide, too wide. Congratulations came in a wave, each one slightly weighted with expectation. My Aunt Karen pulled me into a hug that lasted too long. "Your mother told us everything," she whispered. "We're so proud." Everything. That word sat in my stomach like a stone. My mother was in the center of a group near the grill, holding a glass of sweet tea, glowing with the kind of energy she only had when she was the center of attention. When she saw me, her face didn't register guilt. It registered victory. "Rosalie," she called out, waving me over. "Come here, baby. I was just telling everyone about your promotion. We've been looking at houses with 4 bedrooms. Your dad wants a big garage." She laughed. People around her laughed too. My dad stood nearby, nodding along like this was all perfectly normal, perfectly agreed upon, perfectly fine. Gemma was on a lounge chair, scrolling her phone, barely looking up. She didn't greet me. She just said, "Hey Rose, can we talk later about that visa balance?" My cousin David leaned in. "I heard you're doing really well now. Listen, I've got this idea for a food truck. Just need some seed capital to get started." My Aunt Karen touched my arm. "Your mother says you're handling the down payment. I think that's so generous." I looked around the backyard. Every face was smiling at me. Every smile was a price tag. And then I saw my grandfather. He was sitting in a folding chair near the fence, plate balanced on his knee, watching me without expression. He gave one slow nod. That was all. I set down the plate someone had handed me. "I'm not buying anyone a house," I said. My voice was calm, but it carried. The backyard went quiet in pieces, conversations dropping off one by one like candles being blown out. "I'm not paying off any car. I'm not funding a food truck. I'm not covering Gemma's credit card. I'm not sending money for electric bills or water heaters or insurance. I'm done." My mother's smile didn't collapse, it froze, which was worse. Her eyes darted around at the relatives, calculating the damage in real time. "Rosalie, let's not do this here," she said through her teeth. "You made it public," I said. "You told everyone I was buying a house. You called my job pretending to be a financial advisor to find out how much I make. You've been withdrawing money from my checking account for 3 years without telling me. You chose a trip to Miami over my promotion ceremony, and now you're standing in this backyard selling a version of my life I never agreed to." The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the charcoal popping in the grill. My dad took a step forward. "You're being dramatic, am I?" I turned to him. $4,000 in unauthorized withdrawals, 3 phone calls to my HR department using a fake identity, a house that was never discussed with me being presented to our entire family as a done deal. Which part of that is dramatic? Nobody moved. My Aunt Karen slowly pulled her hand off my arm. My grandfather stood up. When he spoke, his voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the backyard like a blade. "I've watched this family treat Rosalie like a bank account with legs for the better part of a decade," he said. "She paid your bills, she covered your debts, she gave up opportunities so you could have comfort. And not once, not a single time, did any of you show up for her when it mattered. Not once." He looked directly at my mother. "You had 2 chairs at that ceremony with your name on them, 2 chairs, and you chose a beach." My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "So let me make something clear to everyone here," he continued, his voice steady as iron. "Rosalie is the only person in this family who has ever earned anything without asking someone else to pay for it. She will be the sole beneficiary of my estate. My house, my savings, my land, all of it goes to her. Not because she asked, because she's the only one who never did." The backyard erupted. My mother's face went white. My dad started to argue. Gemma finally looked up from her phone, her mouth open. Cousins exchanged glances. My aunt took a full step back like she'd been physically pushed. I didn't stay to watch the aftermath. I found my grandfather's hand, squeezed it once, and walked out through the side gate. I drove home with every window down, the October air cool and sharp, filling the car with the smell of dried leaves and distance. In the days after, the messages came exactly as I expected. My mother oscillated between fury and pleading. Texts at 2 a.m., "You're tearing this family apart," followed by texts at 6 a.m. "I'm sorry, baby. Let's talk." My dad called once more to ask for mortgage help, as if nothing had happened. Gemma sent a voice note that started with tears and ended with, "I still need you to cover my visa." I didn't respond to any of it. The silence I gave them was the clearest sentence I'd ever spoken. But in the quiet that followed, something unexpected happened. My cousin's wife sent me a text. "I had no idea how much you were carrying. I'm sorry." My Aunt Karen called, and for the first time in my life, she didn't ask for anything. "I owe you an apology," she said. "I believed your mother's version for years. I shouldn't have." Two colleagues at work who'd seen me sitting alone at the ceremony quietly took me to lunch and told me they'd noticed. You deserve better that night, one of them said. And my grandfather, he called the following Thursday, same time he always called. He didn't mention the barbecue, didn't ask how I was processing the fallout, didn't try to counsel or comfort, he just said, "How was your week?" "Quiet," I told him. "Good quiet or bad quiet?" I thought about it, really thought. "Good quiet," I said. "The best quiet I've had in years," he chuckled. That's what freedom sounds like, sweetheart. Most people never learn that. In the weeks that followed, I discovered what my life sounded like without the constant static of other people's emergencies. I came home to an apartment that felt like mine for the first time. Not a staging area for the next crisis call, not a place where I sat with my banking app open at midnight calculating what I could afford to give away. Just mine. I cooked dinners I actually tasted. I walked through my neighborhood in the evenings without my phone. I read a novel cover to cover on a Saturday without being interrupted by a single text asking for money. The more their voices faded, the more I recognized a version of myself I'd never had the chance to meet. A version that didn't flinch at notifications. A version that didn't calculate her worth by how much she could sacrifice. A version that didn't say yes to avoid being called selfish. A version that could sit alone in a quiet room and feel whole instead of guilty. I didn't need them to apologize. I didn't need them to understand what they'd done. I didn't need a tearful reunion where everyone hugged and promised to change. People like my parents don't change, they adjust their tactics, and I was done being a tactic. One night, about 3 weeks after the barbecue, I was on my couch with Thai takeout and a blanket and the TV playing something I wasn't watching. My phone buzzed once, a single notification. For half a second, my old reflexes kicked in, the tightness in my chest, the dread, the automatic calculation of what it would cost me this time. Then I looked at the screen. It was my grandfather, just a text, short and simple. "Hope your week's been good, proud of you." I smiled. Not the practiced Lucy at the ceremony, not the tight smile I gave relatives at the barbecue. A real one. The kind that comes from somewhere behind your ribs, from a place that's been holding its breath for years, and finally, it's let go. I typed back, it was, "Thank you," and it was true. The quiet wasn't empty, the silence wasn't cold. It was mine, every bit of it. I hadn't lost a family, I'd lost the performance of one. And in its place, I found something I'd never had before, a life that belonged to me, with boundaries that held and a future that no one else had a claim on.